So it is a challenge to stay positive in a hospital. Regarding my friends and people in my life that know about my diagnosis and my health situations, I am so blessed with supportive people. People have been really awesome, and I only had a couple people that were really cruel, that when I would have skin rashes that were so visible, or hair loss, that said some hurtful things, that I looked really sick, I need to take care of myself. That was really hard, because there is a lot of self-blame with disease. You do wonder if it's your fault.
Sort of, you talked about the concept of self-blame in the documentary, and the tendency to kind of look inward and feel like maybe you caused something, or you did something, or you should have done something differently. And I just wondered if that's still something you're struggling with, if that's something you've been able to take steps toward overcoming, if it's kind of a wave, is it an up and down?
Yeah, that feeling like a victim is actually probably one of the easier things to do, because you just feel, you feel disempowered. I decided that I didn't want to look at myself as a victim. I wanted to start to take my power back and to see what I could do to help myself. And one of the first things that I did was I just started to say really nice things to myself, rather than the self-blame talk, which usually happens like, you did this, so this is probably why you feel like this, or you're just a bad person, so you deserve this. I've just started to notice that there's this like negative loop a lot of us have in our minds. And so I started to just kind of change that. I started to say, Julie, I see your strength. I see that you can overcome this. You are capable of taking care of your body and healing. And I started to, rather than, I think also with the victim mentality, we can get really angry at our bodies. We can feel really mad about what it's doing to us. And I started to notice that from when the doctors told me that my body was attacking itself, I almost adapted this divided mind of like, my body was my enemy. Mm-hmm. And so just like learning to work with the body, learning to really encourage it, kind of like you would talk to your daughter if she was hurt. You'd be really loving and caring, and you wouldn't tell her, this is your fault, you deserve this, you caused this pain. You wouldn't do that. And it's just really interesting that a lot of us do that to ourselves. And so just learning to start to work with myself and to become a teammate with myself, I started to step out of that victim mentality, and I started to feel empowered. And I started to notice that my body was responding to the way that I was speaking to it in a loving, nurturing way. I just started to notice a lot of things that were moving in the right direction from that.
That's a really important point, I think, for all of us to ponder, whether we're struggling with an illness, a health challenge, or we have a loved one who is. I think really thinking about the way that we talk to ourselves about the situation, whether we're the ones in the situation or we're the ones that are loving someone in the situation, right? Because everybody kind of looks for a reason. And so then we tend to start to blame ourselves. And so I think that's a really important point. I do want to get to some of the healing practices that you've been incorporating, some of the things that are making you feel better and that we believe are helping to increase your kidney function. One of the questions I want to ask before we go there, because we want to be real about the realities of how tough it can be, if you feel comfortable sharing, we would love to know if you remember a low point.
One of the lowest points that I've ever experienced, because throughout all of the flares, I was able to, it always flipped, it was really bad, but then things would get better. And so I was used to that happening. And when my kidneys failed and I started to put on a lot of the water weight and my blood pressure kept increasing and my function kept decreasing, I began to feel really hopeless because there was nothing I could do. And I remember I was having lots of visitors, but then I really started to not look like myself. And I remember I had some of my friends come in, and it was my best friend's face. I could see it in her face that something was really wrong. And it was too hard for me because I was realizing that I was still wanting to take care of other people dealing with my situation. And I realized that I was so broken and I was so weak, and I was at a place that I'd never been at before, that I felt like the most loving thing I could do for myself was to close my hospital room door to anybody. The janitors couldn't come in, the people taking my food order for lunch couldn't come in. Like, the only person that could come in was my nurse and my doctor, because I knew that all the energy that I had, which was a small amount, I needed it to heal myself and nurture myself. So that became a lonely time for me. I'm a very social person, and I want a lot of people around me all the time. Well, not all the time. I like people a lot. But it was a low moment, because I really had to sit with what was happening with myself. And I had to really realize that my kidneys could fail, and I could lose my life, and I could be hurting all these people, and I had to really get into that. So I personally have a really deep faith in God. So for me, it was a moment that I went even deeper into my relationship with God, because I realized that I was in the hands of my creator. And so just like that surrendering moment was, it was a low moment, but it was also a real blessing.
And from that time of sort of wanting to sort of close the door to people at that moment, until now, where you're obviously like a really open book, you had a documentary done, you're talking to us about these really deep personal things. What has helped you move from the, I don't want to talk to people about this, to I can let some people into my life and accept it the way it is? What has helped you become so open?
It is radical self-love, because it's, I had started those affirmations when I was a lot younger, learning to speak to myself really kindly. And then when I did close the door, that was me showing myself love and compassion, because that was where I was at. That's what I needed. And then also just, I always say that I'm my own spiritual cheerleader. I have just realized that I thrive with positive encouragements. And so I really started to practice that myself. I've been reading a lot of old journals that I was writing in the hospital and during the time of my kidney diagnosis. And there is a theme of radical gratitude and radical encouragement to myself. Lots of positive statements. At this point in my journal back then, I was totally almost bald, and I was writing stuff like, my hair is going to come back thick and full. My skin is going to my skin is going to heal. My body knows exactly what to do to heal itself. And so just allowing myself to get in a state to calm the nerves, to feel safe and secure with myself. There was a lot of nurturing myself, a lot of putting my mind into a state of healing. Like, I think a lot of people, when they get sick, the doctors will say, this is the direction that you're going, and they just accept that. And so when my kidneys were failing, it was, you're going to be put on dialysis until you get a new kidney. And to me, I just thought, or I can also hold on to the hope that my body can heal. And that wasn't actually really encouraged. I was kind of a lone wolf, telling the doctors and telling everybody, like, I'm going to heal, I'm going to experience a miracle. And after some time in the hospital, I was wondering, like, why am I not healing? Why am I not having this miracle? And I started to almost realize that subconsciously I didn't really feel worthy of that. So that's again where I was like learning to speak to myself in a way of like, you are worthy of a miracle, and you are worthy to heal. Like, these things don't just need to happen to other people, like those random people you hear about, these healing experiences. Like, we are all capable of healing. I think one of the first steps is to get into a mindset to even believe that that's possible. So, but that takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of focus. I guess when you look at my journal entries, they can almost look like a little crazy because it's just constantly repeating it over and over and over of, I can heal, my body can heal, my kidneys know exactly what to do. And so just learning how to support them.
That helped you so much within yourself. One question I'm curious to know about with people in your life, significant people, family members, loved ones, is there anything that comes to mind that your support people did that was particularly helpful or particularly unhelpful?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Well, number one, I am so grateful for the support I had. My friends, my family, work, everybody was checking in on me. So I felt very, very cared for, which was, it's a huge thing. Community and support is huge. No one should be going through this by themselves. And that is sadly something that I see a lot with a lot of lupus patients, is that they feel like they're all alone, and they're not. There's so many support groups out there and different communities that you can join into. So that was so helpful. But one thing I noticed I wrote a lot about was that everybody knows what you should do. Like everybody has the solution. You know what you should do? I was thinking about it. You should take these pills, or you should go do this treatment. That starts to become really exhausting. It was, because before I ended up having to go in and do chemo and a lot of those treatments, I was trying like acupuncture, functional medicine. I was almost making my body work even harder than it needed to. And so, yeah, that was challenging because nobody knows, what's right for you. Even the doctors are kind of experimenting on us. Like everybody is totally different. And so that was tough because I didn't, every time I was with people, it was just this long list of what I should do. And that started to feel really tiring.
That's really important. That's really insightful, I think, for people listening who have their hearts in the right place and want to help, but don't realize maybe that some of the words they're saying, some of the suggestions they're making might not be what you need at that time, might not be what the person that's struggling needs.
It just makes more work, and it continues to add on to that, like almost self-blame, like you're not doing enough.
In the final part of the interview, we'll look at another clip from the documentary Healing Julie. Julie will also talk about some of the physical things she does to cope with lupus. And then at the end, Julie has a final message for those who are struggling to cope with their physical challenges. Thank you.